Welcome to Crying Inside, where emotional family stories are told with honesty and depth. This is a place where every little detail in life can become a big lesson, a wake-up call about love, betrayal, and quiet strength. There are moments in life when silence is the greatest weapon. I, Margaret Wilson, truly understood this on my husband's funeral day. Standing quietly in the funeral room, wearing my most formal black dress, eyes fixed on his portrait, I overheard whispers right behind me. My son, Michael, and his wife, Amanda, were discussing my future as if I were no longer here. They talked about nursing homes, about what was safer for Mom, while my heart was still breaking from the loss. That was the moment I realized I had to take control over my own life decisions. And that's where this story begins. If you've ever felt overlooked, treated like a burden, or stripped of your right to choose, stay with me through this journey. You'll see that even in pain, there's a way to find strength, dignity, and freedom again. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss the next stories, and leave a comment telling me where you're watching from. It's only been 14 days since Robert, my partner of 40 years, passed away. Yet the world around me feels unbelievably unfamiliar. The man who shared morning coffee with me in our small kitchen, who attended Sunday church with me, who drove our pickup truck down Texas suburb roads, now only exists as a quiet portrait on the wooden table in the living room. On the funeral day, as the church music ended, I stood silently in my black dress, wearing the pearl necklace Robert gave me for our 20th anniversary. Lost in memories, I suddenly heard whispering right behind me. Michael, my only son, and his wife Amanda were talking about my future. They didn't speak with comforting tones, nor did they share grief over losing a father and husband. They spoke as if discussing a plan that had already been set in motion. Silver Oaks Nursing Home is pretty good, just a 20-minute drive from our house. They have nurses and doctors on duty, so it'll be safer for Mom. I was stunned. It had been less than half a month since Robert passed, and I still wasn't used to the empty chair next to the dining table or the quiet evenings without his soft cough as he changed the television channel. Yet my son was already thinking about moving me out of the home Robert and I built together over a lifetime. In that moment, I remembered the last night with Robert. The hospital room was cold and white. The monitor beeped steadily, his hand trembling but still trying to hold mine. "You have to promise to be strong after I'm gone," he whispered. I nodded, tears falling onto his hand that was growing cold. I promised to be strong, but I never imagined my first challenge wouldn't be loneliness. It would be betrayal within my own family. I stood there, overhearing my son and daughter-in-law whisper as if I were weak, helpless, a burden to be managed. My heart ached, not just from loss, but from the harsh truth. Sometimes, the ones who want to take away your freedom are the closest to you. From that moment, I knew I couldn't just leave my fate to chance. I couldn't let Robert down from beyond the grave. He believed in my strength. I had to prove he was right. I took a deep breath and lifted my head high. I let them whisper because I understood that silence now wasn't weakness. It was my weapon. I would listen, observe, and then act. My son thought I was just a lonely widow who needed guidance. But he forgot I was once a teacher, managing dozens of rebellious students every day, steering my family through the toughest years. I've lived long enough to know when to stay silent and when to speak up. The funeral ended, guests left, and the house grew quiet again. I sat in Robert's favorite armchair, looking at the photos on the wall. The wedding, Michael's graduation day, picnics under the Texas sun. So many years of love, so many memories now threatened by those closest to me by blood. But even in that heartbreak, I felt a quiet fire ignite within me. A resilient strength that Robert himself once saw in me. He used to call me a phoenix, because after every challenge, I rose stronger. Now that he's gone, maybe it's time for me to truly become that phoenix. I looked up at the Texas sky that afternoon, golden sunlight covering the trees by the porch. I whispered inside, "Robert, please rest easy. I will keep my promise. I won't let anyone else decide my life for me. And I won't let my son turn our love into a financial plan." At that moment, the pain of losing my husband was still there, but I knew I was starting a new journey. A journey not just to protect our assets, but to guard my dignity, freedom, and the life I have left. My name is Margaret Wilson, and I'm 62 years old. Time has left streaks of gray in my hair, but I wear them proudly. They're not just signs of age, but proof of a life full of challenges and memories. I used to be a high school teacher at a small school outside of Texas. 20 years in the classroom taught me patience, calm, and how to manage people. Many students thought I was strict, but when they grew up, they came back to tell me that strictness helped them grow. I've always been a family woman, not chasing after noise or drama. My life has been tied to Robert, the man I married over 40 years ago. Together, we built a home in a peaceful suburban area, a 2-story red brick house. That house had a wide porch, a wooden swing Robert handcrafted, and a garden he spent decades tending to every flower and tree. It's where we shared most of the best moments in our lives. Robert was a devoted husband. He worked in construction, running a small company that specialized in home repairs and design. The work was tough, sometimes uncertain, but Robert always tried his best to provide for the family. I still vividly remember those early years when Michael was little. We had to save every penny. I taught during the day and took in sewing repairs to make ends meet. But I never saw that life as poor, because every evening we would gather around the dinner table, sharing simple joys together. I still remember our morning routine. Robert always woke up early, made me a cup of black coffee, and left it on the kitchen table. I'd come downstairs, smell the coffee, and he'd smile and greet me with a familiar line. "Good morning," the strictest teacher in town. I'd pretend to frown, but inside I felt warm. Little details like that became an essential part of my life. Now that he's gone, many times I pour coffee into his old cup, then pour it out again, because I realize I'm sitting alone. On weekends, our family often held BBQ parties in the backyard. Robert was very proud of the brick grill he built himself. The smell of grilled meat filled the air, roasted corn smelled delicious. Michael ran around with neighborhood kids, and I prepared salad and desserts. Friends and neighbors often came by to join the fun. Laughter filled the air, someone played guitar, and it all blended into a warm American family scene everyone dreams of. On Sundays, the whole family always went to church. I wore a navy blue dress, Robert a white shirt, and Michael dressed neatly. After the service, we usually stopped by the bakery nearby to buy some pastries before gathering around the lunch table at home. Days like those were simple, but laid a solid foundation for my entire life. I am a strong woman, but also gentle at heart. In our 40 years together, Robert and I had many disagreements. Sometimes he wanted to expand the company and take risky investments, while I was cautious and wanted stability. But after every argument, we learned to listen to each other. That's what helped us grow even closer. Robert once said that my greatest strength doesn't lie in words, but in how I hold my ground without yelling or forcing my way. I never use anger to win. I use calmness to make others rethink. Now that he's gone, I realize that attitude is the only support I have to keep going. Michael and Amanda thought I was just a lonely old lady, easy to persuade and lead. They didn't know I've lived my whole life being independent, used to facing hardships without anyone making decisions for me. I'm not the type to give up just because I'm old or because of loss. On the contrary, hardships only make me stronger. The years I spent teaching gave me a valuable lesson. I faced stubborn, rebellious, even disrespectful kids. But I always knew behind that rebellion was a soul in need of guidance. I apply that same patience to my life. When Michael and Amanda started scheming, I didn't rush to react. I observed, I listened, and I waited for the right moment to show them I wasn't as weak as they thought. People often say, old age means weakness, but I believe the opposite. Old age gives me experience, wisdom, and strength that young people sometimes lack. I've gone through years of economic struggles, witnessed my husband's ups and downs, and raised a child from a baby to an adult. I've overcome more challenges than Michael ever imagined. And now, when life throws me a new curveball, I know I'm still strong enough to move forward. The house in the Texas suburbs isn't just a roof over my head. It's a witness to my entire life. The walls hold the echoes of laughter, tears, anger, and forgiveness. The garden is where Robert patiently planted every rose bush for me, where Michael learned to ride his bike. I've spent 40 years here, and every brick is soaked with sweat, love, and sacrifice. That's why the thought of leaving it all behind to go to some unfamiliar nursing home truly takes my breath away. I know exactly who I am. I am Margaret Wilson, a 62-year-old woman, once a teacher, once a wife, once a mother. I've lost my life partner, but I have never lost my dignity, and if necessary, I will fight to protect that, even if my opponent is my own son. The house where I lived with Robert for over 40 years was built in the colonial style, common in the southern suburbs of the U.S. Red brick walls, a wide porch with white railings all around, blue windows, and the wooden swing Robert made himself right on the porch. Passers-by often stopped to admire the small garden with rows of bright red roses he had tended for 20 years. That house was more than just a shelter. It was a symbol of the simple American dream for two teachers and a builder like us. While he was alive, Robert often said the house was the heart of the family. And just like that, with each holiday season, the house would come alive with energy. Every Thanksgiving, the kitchen was filled with the smell of roasted turkey, stewed pumpkin, and apple pie. I would be busy setting the long table with orange-yellow tablecloths, old but warm-patterned ceramic plates. Relatives and a few close friends usually came by, kids running around in the yard, and the adults chatting in the living room, reminiscing about old memories. Christmas was just as special. Robert and I would spend the whole day decorating the nearly 3-meter-tall Christmas tree right in the living room. He climbed the ladder to hang the twinkling lights, while I carefully arranged each keepsake the family had collected over the years. On Christmas Eve, the whole neighborhood would light up, with wreaths hanging on every door, and some houses even putting out Santa Claus statues and reindeer right in the yard. We often gathered outside, drinking hot cocoa, singing carols with the neighbors. Those moments made up the character of a small, cozy American town. But as time passed, my neighborhood gradually changed. Many older families moved away or passed on, and the old houses were sold to young couples just starting out. The sound of children chattering echoes down the street, but I feel myself growing more and more out of place. Used to be, every afternoon, the older folks would sit on the porch, waving as I walked by. Now, instead, there are shiny new Ford pickup trucks, rushing home from work, driven by young families. The old dinners full of stories from the elders have been replaced by the lively laughter of kids and modern outdoor parties. I still keep my habit of going to Walmart every week. That's where Robert and I used to argue over which coffee was better, or hunt for discounted meat packs at the end of the day. Walmart is a familiar symbol in American life, where you can buy everything from breakfast bread to home repair supplies. Now going alone, I still push the cart down the aisles, remembering how Robert teased me for buying too many sweets. The navy blue Ford F-150 pickup still sits parked in the garage. It used to be Robert's pride and joy, the truck he used to haul wood, carry plants, and take the family on weekend picnics. I've never driven it, but just seeing the truck brings back Robert's laughter as he drove down the endless Texas roads. On Sundays, I still go to church. The church stands right in the town center with its white dome and tall bell tower. Every time the bell rings, I feel a sense of peace. Robert used to sit beside me, listening to the pastor's sermon, and then we'd hold hands and pray together. Now I sit alone, the pew next to me empty, but I still go regularly. Because for me, Sunday service isn't just a religious ritual. It's a connection to the community, to faith, and to Robert himself. Life in America can seem busy and noisy from the outside, but in small towns it moves slowly and is full of routine. People often meet at the supermarket, at church, or at summer BBQs. I once thought I'd hold on to that for the rest of my life. But when Robert was gone, those routines suddenly felt like a burden. I shop alone, sit alone in church, return to a big house where only I walk through its halls. As the neighborhood became younger and livelier, I felt the distance between us growing wider. They were excited about a new beginning, while I was struggling with the end of a chapter in my life. And in that feeling of being lost, I started to realize that life ahead couldn't just be about waiting. I had to decide, either blend into the new flow or rewrite a completely different story for myself. The evening after the funeral, the once familiar house felt emptier than ever. The scent of flowers from the condolence wreaths still lingered in the air, mixed with the smell of candles and the old wood from the kitchen where I had cooked thousands of meals for the family. I busied myself preparing a simple dinner as a way to keep my mind from falling into endless emptiness. A pot of chicken soup, some toasted bread, and the stew Robert always liked. Michael and Amanda stayed after the funeral. They sat in the living room while I set the table. From afar, I heard their whispers, Amanda's steady voice mixed with Michael's interrupted words. They fell silent when I walked in, both wearing forced smiles. We sat down at the table. The long wooden table had witnessed so many memories. Michael, in elementary school, struggling with homework, while Robert and I corrected every mistake. Christmas days with the family placing cookies, lighting candles, and laughing out loud. Today, that same table was where I had to hear words that shook me to my core. The meal started out quietly. I ladled soup for everyone, trying to keep the atmosphere normal. Amanda broke the silence first. "Mom, have you been sleeping well lately? I know after a big loss, sleep can be really hard." I nodded gently. So, I'm trying to keep my usual routine." Michael looked at me, put down his spoon, his voice tense. "Mom, Amanda and I have been thinking a lot. We're really worried about you." I looked him straight in the eyes. "Worried about what? I'm fine." Michael took a deep breath, then spoke clearly. "You're alone in such a big house, with so much to take care of. Electricity, water, maintenance, and then there's the health issues. Dad used to handle everything. Now Mom has to do it all herself. And I'm afraid she's struggling." Amanda chimed in gently, her tone soothing. "Mom, we just found a really wonderful place. It's called Silver Oaks. It has all the amenities, nurses on duty all day, community activities, and even gardens for walks. You won't have to worry about anything anymore." I put down my spoon, my hand trembling slightly. The room seemed to spin for a moment. I looked at Michael, then at Amanda. "What do you mean? Do you want me to move out of this house?" Michael quickly shook his head. "No, Mom. It's just, you should consider a safer option. We don't want you to live alone and exhausted in this big house." It had only been 14 days since Robert left me, and this house still held his presence, yet my son was already thinking about moving me out. Amanda leaned forward, resting her hands on the table, her voice sweet. "Please don't misunderstand. We're just worried about you. You could make friends, join painting classes, music lessons. It would be more fun than being alone." I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. Mom had lived here for over 40 years. This is her home, Dad's home, our family's home. Do you really think Mom would give all that up to move somewhere unfamiliar just because it's more convenient for you? The atmosphere grew heavy. Michael avoided my eyes, his voice faltering. "Mom, we just want what's best. I don't want something to happen in the middle of the night and no one to know. I don't want you struggling with bills and chores that Dad used to handle. You'll be safer there. I truly believe that." Those words echoed in my head like a cold bell. Safer. But is it really for me? Or just to ease their worries? I looked down at my cooled soup, my heart tightening. I thought of Robert, remembered his words telling me to stay strong. He believed I wasn't weak, that I could take care of myself. Yet now, my own son looked at me like I was an old, helpless woman. I looked up, my voice firm. "Mom understands how much you all care. But I'm not ready to leave this house yet. This is where your dad and I have lived our whole lives. This is where I want to keep living." Amanda forced a smile. "Mom, you don't have to decide right now. We're just going to look around, just to see. Maybe you'll like it." I looked at both of them, feeling a mix of sadness and anger rising up. I'm no longer a wife, no longer protected by Robert, but I'm still me. And I know full well I'm not as powerless as they think. That night, after Michael and Amanda left, I sat alone in the living room. The yellow light cast shadows on the family photos hanging on the wall. I looked at Michael's youthful face in his graduation photo, then at the picture of Robert holding our son in his arms years ago. Tears fell, not just from missing my husband, but from deep disappointment. I whispered, "Robert, don't you see? Our son is planning her future, as if she no longer has a say." In the darkness, I understood one thing very clearly. This is only the beginning of a long battle. And if I don't stand up to protect myself, I'll lose everything. Not just the house, but the freedom and dignity I've fought to keep all my life. In the days after the funeral, the house returned to an almost painfully quiet rhythm. I cleaned every corner, arranged the wilted bouquets, folded Robert's jacket that was still hanging on the chair. Silence filled the place. But inside me, a restless storm was still raging. It was the echo of what my son and daughter-in-law had said the day before. On Saturday afternoon, Michael and Amanda came again. They brought pastries from their usual bakery in town, their faces bright as if trying to lighten the tense atmosphere. I poured coffee and invited them to sit, but I knew today wasn't just a casual visit. Michael spoke first, calm but with a firm tone. "Mom, we need to have an honest talk. I know you're used to handling everything yourself, but things are different now. Dad's no longer here, and you can't live alone in this house anymore. Dad used to take care of everything, from bills and insurance to repairs. I'm afraid you can't manage on your own. I put my coffee down and looked straight at my son. You've lived 62 years, Michael. Even before you married Dad, you knew how to take care of things. Do you think Mom can't handle it? Michael sighed and shook his head. Mom, that's not what I mean. But you have to be realistic. Age waits for no one. What if you fall in the middle of the night? Who will help? If something happens, who will be there for you? Amanda jumped in, her voice sweet but pointed. Mom, Silver Oaks has nurses on duty 24/7, and doctors come for regular checkups. Plus, there are lots of fun activities and friends your age. You won't feel lonely like you do now. I believe you'll feel much more comfortable there. I was silent for a moment, a feeling of unease creeping in. I looked around the house. Every wall, every piece of furniture held memories of 40 years together. The old piano Robert bought me on our 10th anniversary. The long wooden table where the whole family gathered for Christmas dinners. The wedding photo hanging on the wall. The curtains I sewed by hand. I couldn't just leave all that behind for the sake of safety. Do you think I'd abandon this house? I asked calmly but firmly. Michael answered right away. Not abandon, Mom. Just a more practical arrangement. You can bring your keepsakes with you. Silver Oaks allows that. We can sell or rent this house, so you don't have to worry about upkeep costs. Hearing the word sell, my heart tightened. Amanda quickly jumped in, trying to ease the tension. Mom, I know this place holds a lot of memories, but the most important thing is your health and safety. The house is too big. You'll get tired managing it all alone. At Silver Oaks, Mom won't have to worry about anything anymore. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. Robert's whisper echoed in my mind from the hospital. You have to be strong. I opened my eyes and looked straight at my son. Mom, thanks you for your concern. But I'm not ready yet. This isn't just a house. This is my whole life. Your dad and I built it with sweat and love. I can't just leave it because you think it's more convenient. Michael frowned, his voice low but clear. You're being stubborn. Don't you see living alone is dangerous? Amanda and I don't want you to regret it when it's too late. I answered calmly, but with meaning. The danger isn't living in this house. The danger is giving up your right to decide for yourself. You're not as weak as you think. The room fell silent. Amanda bit her lip lightly, and Michael looked down at his coffee cup. I knew I had just drawn a line. From now on, the difference between me and my son was no longer just a viewpoint, but a real conflict. When they left, I stood at the door, watching the car drive away. My heart was in turmoil. I love my son, but I can't accept how he sees me as useless. This house is where Robert and I wove our entire life together, and I will protect it with all the strength I have left. That night, I sat alone in the living room. The warm yellow light shone on our wedding photo hanging on the wall. I whispered to Robert, "Don't worry, I won't let anyone decide my life for me. And if Michael wants to try, he'll realize I'm not someone who gives in easily." One Tuesday morning, while sitting in the small garden, pulling weeds around the rose bushes Robert planted, the phone rang inside the house. I wiped my hands on my apron and walked in to answer. On the other end was a familiar voice, calm and professional. "Mrs. Wilson, this is James Peterson, the family lawyer. I want to have a private meeting with you tomorrow afternoon. There are some documents that Robert left for you, and at his request only you are to know." I was momentarily stunned, my hand trembling slightly. Robert had always been discreet about financial matters. For many years, he left the family affairs to me while he handled the business. We trusted each other completely and rarely discussed money details. Yet now, he left a separate file, just for me. "He said only I should know?" I asked, my voice hoarse. "Exactly," James replied. "Robert was very clear in his instructions. He wanted you to have full access and emphasized that this is a private matter. I think you should come to my office so we can review it together." I agreed, my heart pounding. After hanging up, I sat quietly for a long time. Images of Robert in his final months flashed through my mind, his eyes thoughtful whenever he looked at our son. Maybe he already suspected something. The next afternoon, I drove my old sedan to James's office in the town center. It was a 2-story red brick building, standing firm for decades like his reputation. James greeted me with a calm smile. He was about 55, wearing metal-framed glasses and neatly dressed in a gray suit. I had met him many times during contract signings or tax filings, but today his eyes looked more serious than usual. "Please have a seat," he said, placing a thick, carefully sealed envelope in front of me. "Robert gave this to me 6 months ago, instructing me to hand it over only after his passing. Inside are handwritten letters and related documents." I trembled as I opened the envelope. Inside was a letter in Robert's familiar handwriting, along with a thick file. I took a deep breath and began to read. "My dear Margaret, if you are reading this, it means I am no longer by your side. I know you are in pain, but there is something important I must say, because I fear if you're unprepared, you will be hurt even more. I have been watching Michael for many years now. He is no longer the boy we raised. Ambition and Amanda's influence have changed him. I'm afraid that after I'm gone, you won't look at him with love anymore, but with calculating eyes. He will try to control you, and maybe even the assets we worked so hard to earn." I paused, my throat tightening. My heart clenched as I read those words, as if hearing Robert's voice echoing in my head. I continued, "I know you're strong, but sometimes you trust family too much. You're ready to forgive, ready to think the best of others. With Michael, I'm afraid that trust could turn dangerous. So I've prepared everything in advance. In this file, you'll know exactly what our real assets are. I want you to understand that you don't depend on anyone, not even our son. You can decide your own life. Don't let anyone pressure you. Don't let anyone take away your independence. You've spent your life sacrificing for the family. Now it's time to live for yourself." Tears rolled down my cheeks, falling onto the paper. Robert, the husband I loved, even facing death, was still thinking about protecting me. I clutched the letter to my chest, as if holding him in my arms again. James nodded gently, then pushed the file toward me. "You should look this over carefully. This is everything Robert left behind." He prepared it all very thoroughly. I flipped through each page. My eyes blurred when I saw the numbers. Besides the house in Texas that's fully paid off, there's a bank account with a balance close to $1 million. A portfolio of stocks and bonds worth over $500,000. And ownership of a piece of land in the Houston suburbs, which is quite valuable. I never imagined that Robert, a simple man, had quietly accumulated such a large fortune. James spoke softly. "Robert lived modestly, but he was very wise with money. He wanted you to have security, so no one could take away your freedom." I gripped the edge of the table. In my mind, Robert's voice rang out clearly. "You are not weak. You have the right to live the way you want. Don't let your son turn you into a shadow in the nursing home." I looked up at James, my tears already dried, leaving only determination behind. "Thank you. I understand now." Robert saw what I never dared to think about. "Now I have to prepare for what's coming." James nodded softly. "Mrs. Wilson, remember, I'm here to support you, but most importantly, you have to believe in yourself. Robert trusted you until the very last moment." As he left the office, the Texas afternoon sun bathed the street in gold. I hugged the file close to my chest, walking slowly but confidently. I knew the real battle was just beginning. Michael and Amanda might think I'm a frail old mother who needs guidance, but they'll never suspect I'm holding Robert's final letter, along with the strength he left behind. Inside me, a silent vow echoed. "Robert, I promise I will be strong." That night, when I got home, I sat at the dinner table with the file James gave me. I opened each page again, carefully, reading every number. This house, where I lived with Robert for 40 years, was valued at $500,000. In the bank, there was $900,000 in savings and safe investments. There was also a stock portfolio worth $600,000. In total, nearly $2 million were in my hands. I was stunned. For so many years, Robert had let me believe we lived comfortably but not wealthy. He never bragged or spent extravagantly. Everything he did was simple, from his everyday clothes to his old Ford pickup truck. Yet behind that ordinary life was careful preparation. He quietly built a shield to protect me, so I'd never have to depend on anyone. Michael and Amanda didn't know this. In their eyes, I was just a week-old widow, living off a small pension and a house that could be sold for retirement money. I immediately understood why they were so eager to push for the nursing home. They think I will soon fall into hardship, giving them an excuse to control my life and finances. That thought sent a chill down my spine. Where is motherly love? Could it be that their concern is just a cover for ambition? I want to believe my son still has love for me, But Michael's eyes when he talks about the house or expenses make me doubt. Amanda is always tactful. She talks about convenience, the joy of making new friends, but behind that is a calculating look, as if she's already planned every penny. The next day, Michael called with a voice that sounded caring. "Mom, I think we should go see Silver Oaks this weekend. No need to decide anything yet, just a visit," I replied softly. "Let me think about it." But deep down, I knew this wasn't just a simple visit. This was the first step in their plan to slowly push me out of this house. That evening, sitting in the living room, I looked around the house. Robert's favorite armchair, the photos hanging all over the walls, the bookshelf filled with novels that he and I used to read and discuss. I imagined having to leave it all behind to move into a small room in a nursing home where everything would be strange and soulless. A wave of bitterness rose inside me. No, I wouldn't let that happen. The next day, Amanda brought a stack of brochures about Silver Oaks. She spread them out on the kitchen table, excitedly saying, "Mom, look, they have gentle yoga classes for seniors, a book club, even an art room. Meals are served 3 times a day, all nutritious. You won't have to worry about cooking anymore." I gave a faint smile. I've cooked my whole life and never found it a burden. It's been a joy, not a chore. Amanda hesitated briefly, but quickly changed her tone. "I know, but you deserve to rest. Michael and I just want you to enjoy your later years." Michael cut in, his voice more forceful. "Mom, Dad handled all the finances before. Now you're alone. Are you sure you can manage? Bills, insurance, taxes, it's a mountain of work." I looked at my son without blinking. "You think I'm not capable? You forget I managed a classroom of nearly 40 students for years. Mom balanced the family budget when Dad was just starting his business and hadn't earned a dime yet. Think about it. Could someone like that just give up?" Michael was silent for a moment, then sighed. "Mom, I'm just afraid you don't see how hard it really is. I want you to be safe." I nodded calmly. "I know, but being safe to me doesn't mean being locked inside the 4 walls of a nursing home. Safety means living in the home I love, the place that holds my whole life." The conversation ended on a heavy note. When they left, I clearly saw the disappointment in Michael's eyes, while Amanda bit her lips softly. I knew they wouldn't give up easily, but I also understood that I held an important advantage. They had no idea about the truth of the assets Robert left behind. I had nearly $2 million in my hands, enough to live comfortably for the rest of my life, enough to prove that I was no burden. That night, I opened Robert's letter again. "You are not weak. Don't let anyone take away your freedom." I read it over and over like hearing him whisper beside me. A quiet fire burned inside me. If Michael and Amanda wanted to try to control me, they'd have to face a different Margaret, a stronger, clearer-headed Margaret, who wouldn't be easily defeated. I folded the letter and locked the documents away in a drawer. Then I wrote a list of things to do. Meet with James to prepare legal strategies, check bank accounts, and most importantly, keep everything absolutely secret. Michael can't know the truth. At least not yet. In silence, I looked out at the dark garden where Robert used to sit every night listening to the crickets. I whispered, "Robert, I will fight. I won't let our son turn our love into a tool for his own gain. I will live just as you wished, strong and free." That night, I slept with a strange sense of peace, because I knew, no matter how fierce the storms ahead, I held the most powerful weapon, the truth and determination. And that was when the conflict in my family started to escalate beyond turning back. That Saturday dinner, the atmosphere in my house was heavy, even before the food was served. Michael and Amanda arrived early, bringing a box of pastries, but I knew they weren't just there for dinner. Michael's eyes showed clear impatience, while Amanda kept a gentle smile but pressed her lips tightly, as if ready with sweet words to persuade me. I cooked the stew Robert usually liked, adding a simple green salad. Sitting down at the table, I carefully watched their every move. Amanda cut a small piece of meat, then started in a soft voice. "Mom, Michael and I are really worried. We've talked it over, and think you should have a longer-term plan. You know, this house is too big, and the maintenance costs are a lot. Maybe it's time to think about selling it." I put down my spoon, trying to keep a calm face. "Sell the house? This is where your father spent his whole life building." Michael jumped in immediately, his voice more determined. "Mom, I understand what this house means, but you have to be practical. It's too big for just you. You don't need 4 bedrooms. If you sell it, you'll have a good sum of money. I can help you invest it, make it grow, so you'll never have to worry about costs later." I looked at my son. His eyes were full of enthusiasm, but there was something in them that gave me chills. Managing investments. The offer sounded reasonable, but I knew exactly what it really meant. Michael wanted control. He wanted to hold my future in his hands. I took a deep breath and pretended to nod. "You both make a good point. The house really is too big for me alone. Maybe I should consider it." I paused, looking straight at Michael, "but I'm not sure I need anyone managing my money for me. I'm still clear-headed, and I know how to handle my finances." They both paused briefly. Amanda quickly jumped in, her voice sweet. "Mom, we don't doubt your abilities at all. It's just that the financial market is complicated and risky. Michael works in insurance and has experience. He will help you invest safely. You'll feel much more at ease." I gave a faint smile and took a sip of water. "Is that so? But Mom managed to support the whole family during the toughest years without a financial advisor. I think I can still take care of myself." Michael was starting to lose patience. He put down his fork and knife, his tone sharper. "Mom, you don't understand. This isn't just about money. Amanda and I are worried about your safety. If you keep the house, you'll have to handle taxes, repairs, all sorts of hassles. Sell it. Send the money to me to manage. You'll have a steady income. You'll be comfortable. We'll be at ease too." I kept my gaze calm, but inside I was shaken. Comfortable. At ease. But for whom? For them? Or for me? I tried to probe. "If you sell the house, how much do you think you'll get?" Amanda quickly asked. I checked the market. About $500,000. If invested right, that money could earn tens of thousands a year. You'd have plenty to spend without worrying. I nodded slightly, hiding a bitter smile. They had no idea that amount was just a small part of the total assets Robert left me. But I wanted to hear more, to see how far they'd reveal their true nature. "What about the house? After selling it, where will you live?" I asked slowly. Michael answered immediately. "We can arrange for you to move to Silver Oaks. I think that's the best place. Or if you don't like it, you could rent a small apartment. But Silver Oaks is the safest, with full amenities." I was silent for a moment, staring at my now cold food. Then I looked up, my gaze cold and sharp. "Do you think I want to live at Silver Oaks? Have you ever asked me what I want?" Michael froze, while Amanda hurried to respond. "Mom, we just want what's best for you. Don't think we have any other intentions." I rested my hand on the table, my voice firm. "What's best for you? Or what's best for you too? Since when did my future become your financial plan?" The room grew icy silent. Michael looked at me. For the first time, his eyes weren't filled with concern. Instead, they mixed anger and helplessness. "Mom, you don't understand. We just want to help. But if you stay stubborn, you'll regret it later." I leaned back in my chair, my voice calm, but every word like a blade. "You've lived your whole life without anyone managing you, and you'll continue to do so. You're not a burden, nor a puppet for anyone to pull the strings. You think I'm weak, but you're wrong." After that, the whole meal fell into silence. The soft clinking of forks and knives against plates, the ticking clock on the wall emphasizing the tension between the three of us. I could clearly see the line had been drawn. I was on one side, my son and daughter-in-law on the other. From now on, things wouldn't be the same. When they left, I stood at the door, watching their car fade away. My heart ached and stiffened at the same time. "I love Michael, but I can't let him and his wife turn me into prey," I whispered, as if to myself and to Robert. "You see, the battle has begun, but I'm ready." That evening, rain lightly fell on the porch roof, and the wind made the rose bushes in the garden sway. I sat in the living room, in Robert's usual armchair, feeling heavy-hearted. I knew the next conversation with Michael would be a turning point. It wouldn't be about advice or Amanda's sweet tactfulness, but the raw truth. At exactly 7 o'clock, there was a knock on the door. Michael came in alone, without Amanda. He took off his coat, hung it on the rack, then sat down across from me. His eyes were tired but determined. "Mom," he began, "we need to be clear. I don't want to beat around the bush anymore." I nodded. "All right, go ahead." Michael sighed, his hands clasped together. "You can't keep living like this, alone in this big house. taking care of everything yourself. I know you think you're strong, but you're 62 now. You're not as sharp as you used to be." I heard that and felt my blood boil. His voice dropped, but each word cut into my heart like a blade. "I don't want to wait until Mom falls to the floor and no one knows. I've talked to some people, and I've looked into getting financial guardianship. That's the best way to make sure Mom doesn't get hurt." I froze. So what I feared had come true. My son, my own flesh and blood, planned to use the law to take away his mother's freedom. I stood up and went to the wooden cabinet where I kept the files Robert left behind. I pulled out an envelope and slammed it on the table in front of Michael. "You think Mom isn't mentally sharp? Then take a good look." Michael frowned but opened the file. His eyes quickly scanned the numbers, then stopped, wide with surprise. 500,000 for the house, 900,000 in the account, 600,000 in stocks. Total, nearly $2 million. His voice choked up. "No way. Our whole life. Your parents lived simply. I never imagined." I crossed my arms, my eyes cold. "That's right. Your father prepared everything. He left everything to your mother, and only to her. You and Amanda didn't know because he wanted to protect Mom from exactly what's happening right now." Michael went silent. He leaned back in his chair, eyes confused, lips trembling. "Mom, why didn't Dad tell me? Why keep it a secret?" "Because your father knew," I answered, voice low, "that you'd see that money as an opportunity, not as a protection for Mom. And he was right. Since Dad passed, you never cared what Mom wanted. Only calculated how much the house could sell for. How that money would grow. You didn't care about Mom, you cared about the assets." Michael flinched as if slapped. His face flushed red, eyes flashing with anger and shame. "It's not like that. I just want to make sure Mom is taken care of. I'm afraid she'll be cheated or lose everything." I looked straight into my son's eyes. "If you really cared about Mom, you would have asked what she wants. But not once. You and Amanda only planned and mapped things out without listening to Mom's opinion. That's not love. That's control." Michael was silent. The raindrops outside hammered against the window, emphasizing the silence between us. I continued, my voice firm. "You think Mom is weak, that she needs someone else to make decisions. But she taught for 20 years, raised you to adulthood, and built this family from nothing with Dad. Do you really think Mom can't take care of herself?" Michael's eyes flickered. I saw a glimpse of regret, but it was quickly overshadowed by pride. "Mom, I just want to be sure. If you let me manage this money, I'll invest it, make it grow. You'll never have to worry about anything again." I gave a faint, bitter smile. "Did you hear what you just said? All you talk about is money, profit. Have you mentioned Mom's happiness at all? Do you care that Mom wants to live in this house, to keep living her familiar life? Or to you, Mom is just a burden tied to an inheritance?" Michael bowed his head, clenching his hands tightly. Finally, he spoke softly, almost admitting it. "Maybe. I am worried about the assets, but you have to understand, it's the family's assets too. I'm your only son. Someday, it will belong to me." I fell silent, then replied, each word heavy. "No, Michael. This is the property Dad left to Mom, not to you. And even if one day Mom wants to divide it again, that's her decision, not your automatic right." Michael looked up, his eyes blazing with anger. "Are you really going to cut me out of everything?" I stood tall, my voice firm. "I'm not cutting you out, but I won't let you treat me like a safe that needs managing. I'm still alive, and I will make my own decisions. If you want a mother in your life, then respect that. Otherwise, you'll be left with the numbers you crave, but lose the family bond." The room felt frozen. Finally, Michael stood up abruptly, pushing his chair back hard. "Mom, you really let me down. I thought you didn't understand, but you'll see. When the time comes, you'll have to rely on me." He turned his back and walked away, slamming the door shut behind him. I sat down, clutching Robert's letter inside my jacket pocket. Tears fell not from fear, but from the pain of realizing the gap between me and my son had become a deep, hard-to-fill chasm. But deep within that pain, a strength began to rise. Robert was right. He knew a son could betray trust, so he left me a weapon. And I, Margaret Wilson, won't let anyone take away my freedom, not even my own son. That night, I sat by the window, listening to the steady rain. I whispered, as if speaking to Robert, Honey, I've faced it now. Don't worry, I'll keep my promise. I'll be strong, even if the one testing me is our own son. After the tense confrontation with Michael, my heart held not just pain, but a new clarity. From that day on, I began to change. I realized if I just stayed still, my son and his wife would soon corner me. I had to rewrite my own story, turn the tables. One morning, I sat at my computer, Texas sunlight streaming through the window. I opened the Habitat for Humanity website. There were pictures of volunteers building homes for poor families in Africa. Faces smudged with dirt, but glowing. Hands calloused, yet eyes shining bright. Suddenly, I felt a new energy surge through me. Robert once wished that after retirement we'd travel and do meaningful work. That dream never came true, but I knew I could make it happen for him. Quietly, I filled out the volunteer form. They asked for age, experience, skills. I wrote, 62, former high school teacher, good health, used to light labor, and capable of organizing. I added, eager to contribute to housing projects or assist with administrative work. When I hit send, I felt a lightness inside, like I'd just stepped through a new door. But I didn't stop there. I reached out to Doctors Without Borders. Their website came up with images of field hospitals and teams of doctors heading to remote areas. I'm not a doctor, but they also need people to manage records, handle logistics, and support volunteer teams. So I filled out the form again. This time, I noted my experience managing classrooms, coordinating school events, and handling crisis situations. I understood that age was no longer a barrier. If I could prove I was capable, the world out there would welcome me. While Michael was busy trying to get Mom into a nursing home, I was secretly planning to break free from his control. No one expected a widow they saw, as weak to dare dream of journeys beyond borders. But I knew that surprise would be my weapon. At the same time, I decided to take action on the financial front. I arranged to meet James Peterson, the family lawyer. Sitting in his office, I got straight to the point. James, I want to sell part of my shares. I need cash to set up a separate fund in my name only, without anyone else knowing. James raised an eyebrow. Are you sure, Margaret? Those shares are currently making good returns. I nodded. I'm not selling everything, just a portion. But I need a backup fund, so when Michael tries to take control, I still have freedom to act. He looked at me, then smiled softly. Robert was right to believe you're strong. I'll help you make this happen. It will all be completely confidential. A few weeks later, my personal account had enough money for me to feel secure. Not a lot compared to the total assets, but enough for me to go wherever I wanted, do whatever I wanted, without anyone's permission or interference. One evening, sitting in the living room, looking at the transfer confirmation papers, a surge of pride welled up inside me. Robert, you see, I've started walking my own path. I won't let my son see me as a burden. I will live a life you can be proud of. Meanwhile, Michael and Amanda kept pushing. They call, send messages, and leave nursing home flyers right in the kitchen every time they come to visit. One day, Michael even spoke bluntly, almost like giving an order. Mom, you need to face reality. You can't keep managing on your own forever. If you stay stubborn, I'll have to apply for guardianship. I don't want to, but if I have to, I will. I smiled calmly. Oh, really? You really think I'm helpless? What do you know about my life besides what you imagine? Michael frowned. Don't underestimate me. I only want what's best for you. I stood up, walked over to the cabinet, opened a drawer, and took out a file I had prepared. But this time, I didn't hand over everything. I only placed a few selected documents on the table. The house appraisal, part of the savings account, some key stocks. This is just a small part. Look, you have enough to live comfortably for the rest of your life without anyone taking care of you. Worried about you? Number. I'm worried about the assets. Michael was stunned. He stared at the numbers, his face turning pale. Mom, you have this much? All these years you hid it from me. I cut in. It's not that I hid it. Your father wanted it that way. He knew if you found out early, you'd try to interfere. And he was right. The room felt heavy and tense. Michael leaned back in his chair, hands clutching his head. He whispered, I can't believe it. For years I thought you and Dad were just getting by. I lifted my head high, voice cold. Getting by, but doing it on your own terms, not controlled by anyone else. You thought I was weak, but you're the one who needs assurance, Who needs a secure future on my money? You're the weak one here, Michael. Not me. My words cut through the air like a knife. Michael looked up, eyes red, both angry and confused. Mom, are you really going against your own son? I looked straight at him, my gaze firm. No, I'm protecting myself. And I'm also teaching you a lesson. Love can't be measured by money. If you really care about me, you'll respect my freedom. If not, I'm ready to live without that fake concern. Michael stayed silent. I knew he was torn inside, but I didn't wait for an answer. I stood up, grabbed the file, and walked out of the room, leaving my son sitting quietly in his own inner storm. That night, I turned on my computer again. A reply email from Habitat for Humanity appeared on the screen. Thank you, Mrs. Margaret Wilson. Your application has been approved. We look forward to having you join the building program in Ghana next month. I read it over and over, my heart pounding. So, a new path had opened up. I leaned back in my chair and closed my eyes. In my mind, I saw Robert smiling, nodding proudly. I whispered, "Honey, I'm ready. I won't wait for my son to decide for me. I'm going to live the rest of my life my way. And I'll show him that his mother isn't a frail old woman, but a storm he never saw coming." The next day, the air in the house was so heavy I could hear every tick of the clock on the wall. Since that confrontational evening, I knew the relationship between Michael and me had entered a point of no return. The motherly love was still in my heart, but it was covered by a thick layer of ambition and control. The phone rang that morning. Michael's voice came through, no longer gentle or sweet, but tense. "Mom, I told you, you can't keep being so stubborn. If you don't cooperate, I'll have to get a lawyer involved. I've already started the process to gain financial guardianship. It's the only way to protect you from your own stubbornness." I sat silently, my hand gripping the phone tightly. Those words cut deep into my heart like a knife. My son, the one I raised, now saw me as someone incapable who needed to be managed. I closed my eyes, hearing Robert's voice echo somewhere. "You're not weak. Don't let anyone take away your freedom." "I don't need protection like that," I answered slowly. "I've lived long enough to know what to do. If you choose this path, remember, you're not just going against me. You're also trampling on your father's legacy." Michael was silent for a moment, then replied, his voice steel hard. "I'm doing this because I love you. One day, you'll understand." And he hung up. I sat still for a long time, my heart beating slowly, as if to remind me that I was still alive, still had a choice. Tears welled up, not out of fear, but from the pain of realizing the gap between me and my son had become an abyss. In the days that followed, I saw Michael less often. Instead, letters from the lawyer's office arrived. The words inside were cold, full of legal terms like conservatorship, financial capacity, potential incapacity. Reading them, I felt pushed out of my role as a mother, turned into a case to analyze, an object to control. At night, I sat in the big house, looking around at Robert's keepsakes. I remembered the hands he once gently used to adjust the family photo frame, the warm laughter we shared over morning coffee. Now it was just me, and the silence. On long nights, I cried softly, whispering his name, hoping for a comforting hug. But within those tears, I found a truth. I was still standing strong, even alone. I started writing a journal every night. In it, I recorded not just my sadness, but the new strength I was discovering. I wrote, "I may be old, but I am not powerless. I may be lonely, but I am not useless. I may have lost my husband, but I have not lost myself." Each line was a step in reclaiming who I am. "Margaret, you don't need to panic. To be accepted by the court, they have to prove you're incapacitated, and it's clear you're fully lucid. I will stand by you." I felt my heart warm. I was no longer completely alone. Robert trusted James, and now he continued as my ally to protect me. Still, the flood of calls from Michael made my heart tighten. Sometimes his voice was full of anger. "Mom, why don't you understand? I'm trying to save you. If you keep resisting, you'll only make things worse." Sometimes, she was gentle, pleading. "Mom, please don't make things difficult for us. You just need to listen. We'll take care of everything." But I realized those words no longer carried love. They were the desperation of someone afraid of losing control. I started spending more time in the garden. Every morning I tended the flowers, pruned the branches, pulled the weeds. Every time my hands touched the soil, I felt connected to this house, to Robert's memory. This place had nurtured me, and I would protect it with every ounce of strength I had left. Late at night, when the wind blew through the window, I often reopened the letter Robert had written. You are not weak. You raised a child, managed a whole family, and you will do even more. Don't let anyone think you need them to survive. I read that line over and over, letting it remind me whenever my heart threatened to break. Once, I sat before Robert's altar, placing my hand on his photo. Honey, our son is going against you, but I won't back down. I will do exactly what you wanted. Hold on to my dignity. Hold on to my freedom. Even if they take me to court, I will stand tall. I understood clearly this was not just a legal battle, but a battle of the heart. I wasn't just protecting property, but the dignity of a woman who had lived her whole life for her family. The relationship between Michael and me had broken beyond repair at this point. But instead of fear, I felt a strange sense of peace, because I knew that finally I had found strength in my own solitude. In the darkness, I closed my eyes and whispered, Robert, I'm learning to live again. I'm hurting so much, but I'm not falling apart. And in this pain, I found a strength I'd never known before. My heart raced, not out of fear, but from the feeling of starting a whole new life. On my shoulders was just a small backpack, holding a few work clothes, a notebook, and Robert's final letter. The long flight brought me to Accra, the capital of Ghana. The bright African sun and the warm air embraced me the moment I stepped off the plane. Volunteers from Habitat for Humanity welcomed me with smiles and warm handshakes. They came from many countries and all ages, but shared one passion: building homes for those in need of shelter. On the first day in the small village in northern Ghana, my group and I got right to work. The work was tough: digging, mixing cement, carrying bricks, building walls. My hands blistered and my back ached after each day of labor. But strangely, I didn't feel tired. Instead, every drop of sweat made me feel lighter inside. I watched the children running around the site, their bright smiles as the house took shape day by day. I suddenly understood that the true meaning of life isn't in savings or a fancy mansion, but in the moments when you realize you're helping create happiness for others. At night, we gathered around the oil lamp. I opened my old laptop and started writing the first lines of my blog called Second Life at 60. I wrote about the journey from a widow, seen as a burden by her own son, to a woman brave enough to stand up, leave her hometown, and rediscover her self-worth. I wrote with all my heart about simple meals with villagers, the joy of building the first wall together, and the feeling of truly living again. Unexpectedly, after just a few weeks, my blog had hundreds of followers. People emailed me, sharing how they found courage in my story to change their own lives. There's a widow in her 70s in Florida who wrote that she also wants to try volunteering. An old man in California said he used to fear that old age was just waiting around, but after reading my blog, he wanted to learn guitar again. I began to realize this journey not only brought me joy, but also created a new circle of friends all around the world. We're connected not by blood, but by dreams and sharing. One evening, as I was sitting on the steps of my newly finished house, a local boy about 10 years old came up to me. He handed me a wildflower and spoke in broken English. "Thank you, Mama." Holding the flower, tears welled up in my eyes. "Robert, you see, I found another family, another kind of love, not romantic love, but the love of life, giving and receiving." In the nights that followed, I no longer tossed and turned over Michael's threats. Instead, I smiled, remembering the laughter of Ghanaian children, their small but warm hands holding mine. I understood that I was no longer the woman who was looked down upon or manipulated. I am Margaret Wilson, 62 years old, and I'm living a meaningful second life. Looking back on my journey, I suddenly realized that all Robert left me was not just money. The nearly $2 million in assets is just the surface. The priceless thing is the trust and the message that I must be strong and hold on to my freedom. Because if a woman spends her life building a family but ultimately loses the right to decide her own life, then all the wealth means nothing. The biggest lesson I learned is that real wealth is not money. Money can be lost or taken by others, but independence and dignity cannot be taken if we firmly hold on to them. It was my dignity that helped me stand tall when my son tried to use the law to control me. It was my independence that brought me to Ghana, where I found joy building walls for strangers. And it was courage that helped me believe that at 62, I can still start a second life. I recall the early days when Michael talked about the nursing home. To him, it was a safe place. But to me, it was just waiting. I chose a different path, an uncertain but meaningful one. I realized that the true inheritance I want to leave isn't a house or money, but a legacy. You can live fully until your last moment, and you can dare to step out of your comfort zone to find freedom. If someone asked me, what is inheritance? I'd say, real inheritance isn't the money in your account. It's the life lessons. It's the courage to take control of your destiny, the strength to stand tall even when your loved ones turn away, and the belief that you deserve to live happily for yourself. Now, as I write the blog, Second Life at 60, I want to share this message with everyone. Age is not a chain. You're never too old to change. You're never too late to start over. Your freedom and dignity are your most precious treasures. Hold on to them, because that's the true legacy you can pass on to the world. And I want to ask you, those reading this story, if you were in Margaret's place, what would you do? Would you choose the safety of a nursing home, or dare to step out and find a new life full of freedom and meaning? Please share your thoughts in the comments. Maybe your story will inspire someone, just like my journey has inspired many. And if you believe this journey deserves to continue, don't forget to subscribe to the Crying Inside channel, where we share and listen to stories about family, love, and life lessons. As I sit down to write the final lines of this story, I think of Robert, my husband, who has been by my side for 40 years. He didn't just leave me his assets, but also the strong preparation and faith that I am strong enough to carry on. Thanks to him, I was able to stand firm through storms and overcome fear to find a meaningful second life. I want to thank everyone who has listened and walked with me on this journey. Every time you stop to listen, I feel that I'm not alone. Every comment, every word of support encourages me to keep sharing and keep living true to my heart. If you're at a crossroads in life, remember it's never too late to start over. The real treasure you can hold on to isn't money, but dignity and freedom. Believe that you deserve to live a full life. Your way. Thank you for watching Crying Inside. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to hit subscribe and join us as we continue sharing heartfelt family stories. And please leave your own story in the comments. Your experience might just inspire someone out there, just like my story today.